Hey everyone.
Oh, sure. Hey everyone, welcome to our Death Stranding Spoilercast. As the name implies, we'll be talking full spoilers about Death Stranding, our thoughts on the game, and everything that happens throughout. So if you don't want spoilers, don't continue any further. So Death Stranding is the first game from Kojima Productions. It's Hideo Kojima's studio that he started after he left Konami.
Well, he didn't leave. He was thrown out. He was thrown out like garbage.
Yes.
Not that he is garbage. It was an unjust throwing. Even though sometimes we complain about Hideo Kojima, that doesn't mean we don't respect him.
So, the game basically covers Sam in this like post-apocalyptic United States, and his task is to literally walk and make deliveries across the United States in order to connect up all these different points with hopes of at first rescuing his sister Amelie from Higgs, who is this, baddie that's captured her. What you eventually come to discover is that she's actually not like really what you think she is. She's not technically his sister. She's like an extinction event. And
well, she's his mother and his sister and everything, but she's also not, because she just stole him as a baby.
Yeah.
And then pretended to be his sister when her soul was split in two, and one side aged and the other didn't.
And we have, these BTs, which are essentially ghosty bad things that come after you. You're traversing the space with a BB.
I think if they're listening to the spoiler casts, they know all this, though.
Yeah, I'm just giving them a general overview before we start talking about everything.
Yeah.
We've got BB. We've got a whole bunch of stuff going on. As you can imagine, the plot at times gets a little bit convoluted. I feel like we hung in there pretty well throughout the whole thing, but I know that when we were streaming it on Twitch, there was people being like, "What is happening? What's going on?"
I think if you're tuning in every once in a while, it's hard to explain what somebody missed.
Yes.
And they go, well, there was a huge giant BT with no head, and its head was actually two hands, and it came, and then the inside of it was, its heart was Higgs. And you're like, and everyone's like, what? And like, if you saw it, it
would make
very,
sense.
It was very poetic if you saw it.
Yeah.
One thing I really like about this game is that without actually saying it, it gave a really strong sense of what it's like. I don't want to say to be a gamer, but to be an introvert in a world that is more and more highly connected. So if you ever really, truly want to disconnect, it's hard. And there's also good sides and bad sides to being forced to connect, even though it's not really within your will.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was interesting. An interesting take on social media and being part of a society. Because one of the things he said when he was making it is...
Sam?
No.
Kojima?
Kojima said when he was making this game was he wanted to get that feeling that a lot of loners have. He said gamers, but I feel like that people are going to be like, gamer culture. But not that being a gamer is bad, obviously. But he said that a lot of people, they feel disconnected from the world, and so they play video games to feel a little less lonely, I guess. But that connection comes at a cost.
Well, he also specifically referenced making connections in terms of like the current like political climate, both in the United States and in other places too.
A lot of people questioned why it was so United States focused, and I think if you're not familiar with his previous works, he has a lot to say about the United States military-industrial complex and how the horrors of war are really negative and detrimental to a lot of people who are simply pawns in a bigger scheme and stuff like that. And this game kind of follows the same themes. And it also picked up a lot of themes from the Silent Hill universe, because originally a lot of these ideas were for Silent Hills, the proposed sequel to Silent Hill. And once you play the game for about 40 hours, you start seeing it. At first you're like, oh, we're in the future, weird ghosts, whatever. But the beaches that everyone's talking about is individual to each person, which is very unique. Not unique, similar to Silent Hill universe, where everyone's Silent Hill is different based on their life and their sins, and many people see it as a sort of limbo or purgatory, which the beach kind of is. It's a place between worlds, because they depict the afterlife as the ocean, and the beach as this place you go when you die, but they don't know what's beyond the beach.
Yeah, and it's also kind of like a transitional place, because you can use those beaches like Fragile to jump from place to place.
And then one of the things that I really liked is that with Sam's revealed later to be father, Cliff,
Mads Mikkelsen.
Daddy Mads. Most people know him as Daddy Mads. The guy who Mads Mikkelsen plays, you see him throughout, and he's just generally a bad guy. And everyone's like, oh, bad guy. But you kind of, through his acting, it really said a lot, because you can see he's kind of dead in the eyes whenever he is fighting out in the world, but when you look into the memories of him caring for you and stuff, he's a lot more present. And there's this one moment where he goes from having this hazy look in his eye and then being able to have some sort of clarity when he finally looks at Sam, and he's like, oh, like, you're my baby. Because he was stuck in purgatory for all that time, because his unfinished business was protecting his baby, and he didn't know where his baby was.
I absolutely loved how they had all of those, like, BB memories throughout, where you're seeing through Sam's BB eyes, Mads Mikkelsen, or Cliff, I guess, and like just little clips of that story, and then when you get to the end, you actually see that play out from Cliff's perspective, basically, instead of just through these short BB excerpts. I thought that was really cool, and it made it even more sad, because you kind of know, like, what's coming too.
Well, it's kind of like you have these memories, and then you have somebody else from those same memories being like, oh, this is what it was, and you're like, fuck. I just thought that moment where he's finally able to move on was so beautiful, and then you have this refrigerator logic when you get further on, and they fully explain it, because you're like, is that our dad? Like, it's not fully explained, but you can have a sense that he was able to just finally feel like, I saw my child, and I see that they're safe. I can finally feel like it's okay. I don't have to stay here anymore. And then you get more and more sad every time you think about it, and then BB's theme song starts, and you start crying really hard.
And you just cry through the last, 2 hours of the game.
Some people, I think, were wondering how Sam could not notice that Lou, a.k.a. the baby in the pod, was female. Like, I don't know, when a baby has female genitals, we're just going to assume female at this point, had female genitals, and I'm like, well, he probably was repressing a lot of things and just didn't want to look. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, if you don't want to, like, it's not, if you're kind of just trying to hold that back and not think about it, and you're gonna, like, he's going through this really stressful time in his life, and sometimes you only see what you want to see instead of seeing what's actually there. So having Lou be a boy, like the boy that he lost a long time ago, and just, like, having that be his thing.
Well,
and he was only ever fully able to clearly see the actual baby in front of him after he processed all of his loss and emotions and trauma, and was like, oh, no, this is a girl. This is a different baby/person than the baby I lost.
Yeah, well, and he even goes so far as to give BB the name of the child that he lost. So it's very clear that there's some, which is why at the end I was so freaked out. I thought that maybe they were going to say that he had to, like, move on from that in order,
I was going to be upset.
Let go of BB in order to, like, move on.
I genuinely thought he was going to let that baby be dead. I was like, no, it's worth it. It's worth blowing up the entire area to get this baby.
So this game I was a bit divisive, I think. We both really enjoyed it. So any criticisms that we offer are not us saying that we didn't like the game. It's more just like, oh, here are some things that we noticed, like things that maybe could have been done differently. But we said throughout our streams of it that we both really enjoyed it. So, but I think that some of the things that people reacted to maybe is that, you know, some people don't like it when a plot is a little, like, complex, like, almost like anime-esque. I don't even know what the good word for that is.
The thing is, though, I think if you just genuinely pay attention the whole time, it's not that weird.
Yeah.
Or am I just used to things that are way weirder because we played Kingdom Hearts this year, so that was wild.
Well, yes, that was very wild. But I also think that sometimes when people play a game, like, they don't want to, and, like, this is valid, but it's like they don't want it to be, they want everything to be, like, very spelled out, very obvious.
Yeah, sometimes you're tired.
Yeah, you're tired. You just want to, like, get in there, shoot some stuff, do some things, have things be pretty straightforward and not really, like, pay attention and think about, like, what is happening.
But, you know, my boyfriend who I tried to show Greedfall to, and he just ran around shooting everyone, and he does gaming on YouTube too, so he's not like a casual or whatever. He genuinely liked it, even though it's like really weird and had a lot of stuff where he couldn't just run around shooting things. So, I mean, I don't know. I just wanted to put that out there.
Other things that, you know, I can see where some people thought the gameplay was repetitive. I'm the type of person who can find like little loops like that to be satisfying if they're done in the right way. And so this to me was satisfying to just like, ooh, like optimize my carry weight and like wander around and like get from place to place. And like for some reason I found that very like fulfilling.
I've been really wondering to myself why I hate I don't hate open worlds. I think I hate a lot of the open worlds that are coming out recently where it's just the same idea over and over and over again. Oh, like things are coming, whatever. I think what I like about that is that it's open world, kind of just task heavy, but it gets rid of all of just the extra BS and focuses you on a different type of system that makes it unique. And I know, I totally understand. Delivering packages sounds so boring. But when I was doing it, I was just genuinely having a good time. And I think it was just that I could focus on one thing. I knew what I needed to do. And the challenge of walking was good for me. And the environments were really beautiful. The music was beautiful. And I think it also gave me a chance, because I always felt so violated in these safe houses, because everyone was always just violating Sam's space all the time. And it felt like out there in the world, by yourself was the only time you could really be at peace.
You know what? You always ask me, Stacy, why do you like just wandering around outside for hours at a time in circles?
I don't ask you why.
No, but like, when I tell people that like my like relaxing activity is just to like go walk outside for like 2 hours, and people are like, why? And
I don't question it.
But this is why. This is like,
yeah, because people mostly are just gonna leave you alone. And you're just alone with your thoughts, and you're able to look at things and stuff.
Yeah.
But I've never asked you why. I've never questioned it.
Never questioned me?
No, I was just like, there she goes.
There
long walks are nice. They're nice things.
So, but I can see how if, like, that gameplay doesn't speak to... So...
I didn't think the game was going to speak to me, and it did. And I think, additionally, people... I don't know why people thought this. People thought there was no combat in the game.
Yeah.
There's rocket launchers, automatic machine guns, like, all kinds of stuff. It's just not there in the beginning.
Yeah. So
and you have to work to unlock it.
There were a couple times where it's like when reading reviews, there were a couple things that I wondered about. And those were, did this person actually progress like farther in the game? Did they finish the game? Because there is combat, but also how much of a community aspect did they have? Because even if you have like thousands of reviewers playing the game at the same time, so you would think, because there's a community aspect to this, which is where everyone can build and leave things for each other to like traverse the space.
That made such a big difference.
It makes a huge difference, especially later in the game. But think of it this way, even if you have thousands of reviewers playing it, are they just trying to finish the game, or are they dicking around like everybody else, wanting to like build bridges and roads? Because like you spent a fair amount of time off of our streams building roads, gathering materials.
Which was fun to me.
Doing all these things. But if you're a reviewer that's like, okay, I have X amount of time to finish this game, are you going to take the time to do that, or are you just going to try to, like, get it done?
You know what, though? You know what I'm going to say to that? Hideo Kojima sent the review copies out way earlier than is normal, so that people would have enough time. People had 3 weeks.
Yeah.
3 weeks to do it. And
I don't think that's Hideo Kojima's fault.
No, I'm saying it's not Hideo Kojima's fault. He took that into consideration.
Yeah, I mean, but I would just put that more on like the outlet that people are writing for. You know, did the outlet say you have to finish this in 1 week, and so therefore is this person really like just pushing to like get through to the story points and not actually spending the time to like I don't remember.
No, I totally agree with you. I think a lot of people... I think there's a lot of named IGN where the people are not given enough time to play. And they don't... I don't know what it is. But I've read quite a few reviews from IGN where I go, you didn't, like, finish the game. Like, yeah. I know an example I keep coming back to is their review of Resident Evil 2 where they didn't know there was a side B.
Yeah, that you play through the game with one character, and then you play it through again with a second character.
And they gave it a poor score, and then everyone was like, there's a side B, you didn't finish the game. Like, you literally you only got halfway through the game.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I didn't know that. Reviewers literally get, like, a 5-page outline of all the things that are in the game that are easy to, like, that you should know about.
Yeah.
There is no excuse.
Well, But
I've also heard from secret people that they give them so many games to play that they can't.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they also sometimes send their reviews to the publisher before they publish it to the world, in case the publisher has something to say.
Yeah. Well, so when we've been, and this doesn't happen necessarily for every review copy, but we're not reviewers, we're Let's Players, but there's still been times where we received a game code and also received like a whole document that was like, do you think you got to the end of the game? Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you see this? Like, if you get stuck here, here's a hint. Like, and some of them are actually like very complete, and so it's like you don't even reference that unless...
I don't think I've ever gotten a code from a major company, even like semi-major companies. We've ever gotten codes without like a whole list of instructions on what to do. There's not like a walkthrough or anything. They just go, make sure you have this. Like when we got it from Captain Spirit, I remember they were like, okay, we're not going to tell you what there is, but there's this many things in this many places, and this many, and like things are timed. So they would explain how the game works so that when we covered it, we wouldn't be forgetting something essential.
Or, I can imagine for this that they would say, hey, when you get to the credits, there is additional, there's another like
4 hours.
There's another, there's a huge section of this that's after, like, the first, like, named credits section at the end. And I just, you have to wonder if some people just got to that point and just, like, turned it off.
I know. No, a lot of people said, no, my friend had to explain to me that it was blah, blah, blah. But the gameplay, I don't know, there's something about it that I find enthralling. And I know it's really frustrating to say, I don't know, it just was really fun. I think it's because the systems were designed so well.
Yes.
In that if you fall down, if certain things happen, it really is your fault. It's not the game being bullshit.
Yeah, yeah.
It really is just that part was really hard. You weren't prepared, or you overestimated your abilities and you fell down.
Yeah. Do you know what I ended up, when I was playing this on my own, do you know what I spent the most time doing?
What?
I was running around grabbing the cryptobiotes, like, just running around grabbing them because I just found it really fun to, like,
eat bugs.
Get as many as I could.
But you were at full health?
And then, yes, but I was at full health. And then also, well, because you carry them with you.
Mm-hmm.
But also, every time I tried to leave a place, and I'd, like, walk out, and then it would be like, oh, here's this package. It's going, like, where you just came from. And I'd be like, oh, well, I should just bring that back really quick. And so then it took me, like,
but then you
so
were getting
long.
so much stuff done, though, and it feels good. I don't know what to say.
Good. Yeah. You know, and it's, you know what it is, too? It reminds me of, in so much as, like, I feel like when you're doing, like stuff for work, or, like, just being an adult, and, like, things feel really complicated and complex, and you don't always know what you're supposed to do, I feel like this game, I always felt like I knew what I was supposed to be doing, and it was up to me, like, how I did things, like, what order I did them in, and for some reason that made tasks feel, like, satisfying and rewarding instead of, like, daunting and, like, making me want to procrastinate.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I totally get it.
Because, like, even, like, when I do, you know, for instance, like, chores at home, some of them I find to be, like, rewarding, like, to finish it, but then other times it's like, oh, I have to call the bank and do this thing, and I put it off forever because I'm like, I don't know exactly how to do it, so then I don't want to. And with this, everything just felt very, like, you know, I knew where I was, like, you know where you're supposed to be going at pretty much every point. So
one thing I liked about, there's so many themes in this game, and they all intertwine really well, I think, is that out of the chaos of destruction always comes, like, just this tiny speck of life to rebel, because they talk about the Big Bang and the particles of God and stuff, and they talk about how...
Oh, the God particle?
Yeah, the God particle. Well, Higgs calls himself, I am the particle of God, and I was like, oh, is that from the Hadron Collider or whatever it's called? And I thought it was really interesting, and thematically, sometimes, like, this little speck of dust would come across the screen whenever they were having these conversations about that subject. And I thought that was just, like, a really cool theme, and I just like the idea of that life isn't supposed to be happening at all, and we're all just fighting our hardest just to exist, and that's good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And just living is good enough. You're alive, and you did it. And I think a lot of people can relate to that just from everyday lives where they're not trying to survive an apocalypse. Just sometimes life is really fucking hard for whatever reason it is, and just living day to day is hard, and you did it, and you fucking beat the odds, and you're gonna live to another day until hopefully, like, you lived long enough to have a little baby Luis in your life, because he really seemed like he was ready to give up on life, and then he worked through it, and he fought for things, and he processed all of his emotions, and he was able to, like, have his version of happiness, which would be to have, like, a little baby. That's his version of happiness. It's not everybody's, but that was his version of happiness, and I really like that.
Well, remember we had that conversation one time where we were talking about, we were talking about the good place and how it's like you have to get enough good points to, like, do something, and I remember what we were talking about was how, like, shouldn't it just be enough that, like, you survived and didn't kill anybody?
Yeah.
You know, like...
You didn't kill anybody, and you survived.
And, like, the fact that, you know, you just, like, made it through and, like, didn't do anything to hurt anybody else, I feel like should be enough that, like, oh, it's, because we were talking about, like, you know, did you, like, make something worthwhile of your life, or, like, whatever that was, and it was just kind of like, yeah, but that's, like, a bullshit metric. I feel like people get really caught up on, you know...
Having a worthwhile life.
Or, like, passing on a legacy, or, like, all of these, like, really big things that, like, when you're just trying to, like, make rent every month, worrying about that stuff. Like, if you want to, that's fine, but, I mean, it just seems like it doesn't make people happy, you know?
Having the anxiety of, am I living life to its fullest at all times? Like, sometimes living life to its fullest is just sitting there and relaxing for a little bit. Or paying your bills and finding someone who cares about you, if that's important to you. Some people don't think it's important. Just whatever version of happiness that is your version of happiness, that's good enough.
Yeah.
That's more than good enough. Most people don't figure that out ever.
Yeah.
So just figuring that out, and it doesn't have to be the type of happiness that you even think is the type of happiness for you right now. You might get older and realize, oh wait, no, actually, my version of happiness is something completely different. And what matters is just trying your best not to give up, and I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Because I really liked how they said, just life itself, there actually is no meaning to life other than just trying to rebel. Rebel and say, I'm gonna fucking live. Because the universe has been trying to destroy life ever since it started to exist. And I kind of like that more than the whole bullshit question of what's the meaning of life. And I'm like, there probably isn't one. It's just a bunch of organisms trying to live.
Just scraping out a living.
Just scraping out a living, and that's fine. Like, I've never really connected with that whole grand question whenever they do it in media. Like, what's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of living? And I'm like, I don't know what to live. Whatever.
Well, you know, because I think that when you start thinking about what's the meaning of life, one, it's going to be different for different people. And I think that when people, like, are seriously trying to answer that question, you know, your values are different than mine. Like, we're all going to value different things. And also, like, it kind of assumes some sort of, like, all-important, like, I don't want to say, like, narcissistic, but it, like, really puts, like, you, the individual person, at, like, the center of the universe, because you're like, oh,
or
like,
even just humanity.
Or just humanity is, like, so important because, like, whatever. And it's like, I don't know that that's actually it. And the whole end of this game comes down to basically, oh, like, I wanted, like, the extinction event wanted things to be over now and start over. And you convince her to say, we'll just wait. You know, it's not going to happen. It's just going to happen later, you know?
I like that because I kind of related this, trigger warning, suicide. There have been times, a lot of times, most of the time, where I'm just sitting there like, I am never going to get outside of, like, my mental illness or whatever the fuck. You know, I'm like, it's never gonna change. Like, what's the point? I should just, like, kill myself right now. It would just be, like, so much, you know, suicide, whatever. All those thoughts. And then, but if I had killed myself, like, all 50,000 times I thought about it, I wouldn't have been able to enjoy a lot of the things that I have now. And I know eventually I'm going to die anyway. I don't know, whenever, later, hopefully. Yeah. But the difference is that I lived to that point rather than just cutting it off early. Because one part where Amelie says, oh, well, what's the difference between 2 million years from now and now? She said some number I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
But if I stop now, you'll have another, like, few million years. Or I can just do it today. And to her, it's valid because she's this poor creature whose entire existence
is alone.
Is being alone on a beach, waiting to destroy the world. And that's, you know, her feelings are valid. But to humanity, it does make a difference because it makes a difference that they get to live another 2 million years and experience what it is to be humanity. Or even just life on Earth, to just be alive and have all those positive and negative experiences that have come to be and stuff.
Well, and I think that kind of, to your point about, you know, mental health, I think that kind of lends credibility to, you know, like, when people are in a dark place, they might be sitting there thinking, like, well, like, what's the difference between now and later? Like, if it's going to happen later, why not now? And it's like, but the message that Kojima, I think, really tries to drill home is that, like, we're all just trying to get by, and, like, for whatever time that is, like, let's just, like, give it our best shot and, like, connect with people.
I like it. It's just, like, it's okay to feel like you're just trying to get by. I like that. I really connected with that. Like, Sam, he feels really isolated. He can't be touched by people. And in the beginning of the game, it really did feel like he just kind of wanted to give up.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of the game, yes, he goes off and isolates, but he also has, like, he's made friends. Mm-hmm. And he has that connection. And he can just, like, go say hi if he wants. And he has Luis. And, like, that's so much different than where he was, because I don't think he could even imagine a life where he felt, like, connected and feel fulfilled. But he tried to go day by day and just live and survive. And it all, like, he got friends and shit, and he made it. He did it. Mm-hmm. And I like that. He wasn't trying to be this grander scheme, because they all tried to give him glory, which I guess comes back to, oh, what's the meaning of life? And he's like, no, I don't care. I just wanted to live. And everyone was just trying to live.
Yeah, and I think that also is reflected in how, like, everybody else is really big on telling him, like, oh, like, you're going to save us, you're going to connect America, like, you know, you're going to be the hero, essentially. Mm-hmm. But Sam, I know some people were kind of like, oh, like, he's, like, the reluctant hero, but I didn't even feel like he was particularly reluctant. I felt like he was more ambivalent.
Yeah, he was just going through the motions.
He's just kind of like, you know what, this is just my job, and so that's what I'm going to do, and, like, I don't have anything better going on, so, like, why not? Because I don't feel like he...
It was just something.
Yeah, and I don't feel like he strongly rejected the idea. Like, I don't think they dragged him into it. I think he was kind of like, sure.
In the beginning, I felt like he was being violated a lot, but he also was really passive and didn't care. I think he was just, like, really depressed. And he's like, I don't care.
That's what it seemed like to me.
He just seemed, like, so depressed that he did not care that everyone was stealing his pee. Mm-hmm. Like, he was like, whatever, just take my bath water.
Fine.
Nothing matters. Mm-hmm. And it's like this really weird world, but it has this very human element in it, and I liked it. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about Fragila?
Yeah, I was actually gonna transition us into talking about some of, like, the other characters, and I thought maybe a good place to start would be with the female characters such as Fragile and Mama, since, you know, I know that a lot of people went into this game kind of being like, whoa, like, those names, you know.
I liked their characters, and I liked their character arcs. I think some parts of the execution were done in the eyes from somebody who I think might have limited access to a deeper female perspective. Not saying that he probably doesn't have any female friends or whatever. I just think it's a general overall issue where somebody's trying to express how someone feels who's different from them. Just like anybody. Like, I don't know, if I wrote a male character, maybe I'd write their experience with masculinity completely wrong or something, you know? So I'm not saying, like, he's a bad person. We're just saying, like, this is a big weakness he has.
Yeah, well, and it's also, like, I don't think... I wish that people wouldn't assume that this is, like, that this phenomenon is, like, limited to men, because it's really not. It's when any writer or, like, person creating something tries to, like, includes an experience that's outside of their own, there is an element of, you know, unfamiliarity with the topic that you're covering, and whether that's, like, dialogue or writing about their feelings or, like, how they should be portrayed, like...
Also, he does get a little horny about it. Like, let's be honest, I think it's kind of annoying, but at the same time, if I was in the same position, I'd probably get horny about things too. You know? You like,
definitely would.
Yeah, I would. And, you know, whatever. You think Higgs is not a little kind of like a horny dream for Kojima? He has bisexual energy. Let's be real about it. I
think that maybe... So I didn't come into this game with experience with Kojima's other games.
Mm-hmm.
So I came into this from a relatively, like, blank perspective and just being like, I'm just going to see what's, like, presented in front of me. I do think that, from my perspective, it seemed like some people interpreted the characters of Fragile and Mama because they were thinking of how Kojima has treated other female characters,
Mm-hmm.
and so they automatically assumed the worst
Mm-hmm.
at some times, instead of just, like, waiting to see what are these characters actually about. Because some people got really mad about those names, and I was making fun of them too, but then when you play the game, it's like, oh, they're not given these names because that's what they are. They're given these names because that's, like, what he's doing is he's calling attention to like this, almost like this
how the world sees them.
The world sees them. But the game, I think, tried pretty hard to show that they're more than that,
Mm-hmm.
or that there's, like, a more complex picture to it than just, like, she's fragile.
Yeah, because we also have Die Hard Man, so.
Yeah, so I, like, if there were specific things that I would have changed about their interpretations, some of the camera angles during that one scene with Fragile and Higgs is, like, pretty much the first like, thing that comes to mind when I think about, like, what would I actually change.
Yeah, I think, so the angle that was chosen was of her butt, and some people would say, well, what are they supposed to show? Her back? I don't know, but the angles seemed to me, if the message that I was getting was that what's important to her was her body's beauty, but if I was her and I was, like, living in this world, what would be important to me was my body's functionality. So the camera angles were like, look at her beautiful, perfect butt turning into an old people butt. And I was like, okay. But really, the true horror of it would be me losing the control over my body, mm-hmm. and B, I would assume her body kind of hurts because it's old now. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
So one of the things that we talked about during that scene, or right after it, I guess, was, like, so the two camera angles it shows is one where it's, like, that, like, from her butt, like, through her legs, looking at Higgs, I think.
It was from the side of her butt, and then the Higgs is to the side. So you get, like, one butt cheek.
No, it's where it's, like, through her legs from the back.
Oh, okay.
There's that one, and then there's the one while she's running, and it's, like, her lower back, like, the top of her ass crack.
Mm-hmm. No, it was, like, going up her thighs to her butt.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, I think that having her in underwear was fine.
Yeah, no, like,
she's not even fully in underwear. She's wearing a tank top and, like, the most normal panties I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, that was fine. I had a feeling that maybe the original idea was her to be naked, which I wouldn't have objected to because I would see that, but it would also, like, just make me really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, I understand. I would have understood it artistically, but I would have been like, oh, God, this is, like, really, like, a lot.
Yeah, I think that I agree with you, and I think it also would have been different for me to see it in, like, a movie versus seeing it in a video game, because you feel
like it's happening to you.
Yeah, there's a different type of agency where I feel like that would have just made me feel very violated, much more than seeing it, like, when I see stuff like that in movies.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that there are just, like, a couple tweaks that you could make to that scene that would have made it, I think, better. I don't think it was a horrible scene. Like, some people, when we were streaming it, reacted very negatively to it, and I think that that's valid. Like, you know, you're allowed to have your own feelings about it. For me, there was just, like, a couple things that I was like, I would have tweaked this and this to make it a little bit less horny and a little more like, this is a trauma.
Yeah, because it was distracting from the message that was trying to be told to me.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the message was, this thing has happened to her body that someone else did to it. He took away her agency over her body, and she was brave enough to make the sacrifice of her body for the greater good. And I understood that.
Yeah.
But I was, like, really distracted by the sexual angles. And that made me not fully feel what I think he was trying to communicate in that scene. So, yeah.
Because I think that, you know, if you had maybe a scene where she's like looking at her hands or something.
Yeah, because that would be first person, and your hands are like your tools to the world.
Yeah, and I feel like that could have been very powerful, I think, and like showing how that affected her instead of just showing her booty.
Another thing that I liked. I don't know, whenever Sam... Okay, I'm looking at the screen right now, and, Sam's naked a lot, and I never feel like those are sexual. Am I, like, an idiot, or what? I don't feel aroused by them. I feel like I'm looking at Sam.
I think that if you had a female character in all those shower scenes...
Yeah, it would be different.
It would have read a little bit differently, and that is...
I always felt like I was violating him whenever I was looking. When he's in the shower, I feel like I'm violating him.
Right.
When he's just naked on the beach, I feel like that's just something that's happening. I guess context matters.
Yeah, I think part of it also is because, like, when you're seeing him... I don't know. Because I keep thinking, like, if you literally just swapped it out for, like, Fragile and had her just, like, naked... Mm-hmm. How, like, would I feel differently about it? And I probably would. Yeah. Because I would probably feel like it was gratuitous. So, I don't know. But other things that make it feel less gratuitous when it's him, I guess, is because he never really seems to be, like, ashamed of his nudity. Or, like,
nothing really...
overtly sexual.
Yeah.
Like, he just is standing there naked, and whereas, like, in the scene with Fragile, even when she's, like, in her underwear...
She's, like, naked against her will.
Yeah, she's naked against her will, and, the camera is kind of ogling at her, whereas, like, when Sam is naked, we just kind of get these, like, straight-on shots. The one thing I will say is different is the shower, because the shower kind of, like, pans all over his body, and I think that if it was a female body, we would be like, oh, what the heck?
I would like to give credit to the actress who played Fragile. She did a really good job.
Yeah.
I liked her character a lot. I liked her motivations. I liked that even though she did this huge sacrifice, she has this very human thing where she goes, I don't think I would do it again. Mm-hmm. I think I would, if I had the chance to go back, I just wouldn't do it. And I thought that was pretty cool. I think, not that saying, like, being, like, a coward is good, but I think that's
honest.
I think that's a feeling that not all people feel, but I think that's a feeling that some people would feel, where, like, the consequences on my life have been too great. I wish I hadn't done this. And I think that's really interesting, and she was really complex, and she had a lot of, like, corniness. I like their little dynamic where she was like, I'm going to offer you bugs.
Yeah.
And then their friendship was solidified by the fact that Sam was like, yes, I will take those bugs.
Yeah, and then, like, he brings her bugs at the end, which I thought was, like, really cute.
That's solid friendship.
That's content. That's good content.
I understand that some people would interpret it as a romance, but I really interpret it as him finally being, like, able to just be friends with anybody.
To have a friend.
Just have he was kind of friends with everybody. Everyone else was friends with him, and he was just only friends with Fragile, which I thought was very amusing. And I like that. I like their closeness. Mm-hmm. And I like that there was a male-female closeness friendship, and that was pretty neat.
Yeah. And there never really was a bullshit romantic weirdness.
No.
I liked how that was just completely left alone. Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot of his relationships with women are either with familial or just like they're people. They're mm-hmm. not like an object of romance. Not that that's bad, but I just liked it.
I surprisingly really liked Mama's story arc a lot. And I wasn't expecting to, because I want nothing to do with motherhood, and so like I feel like those stories tend to kind of like miss me a little bit, because I'm just kind of like like whatever, I'm not very touched by this. But I don't know, that I thought it was executed pretty well, and it was sad.
I thought it was the whole twin thing was really interesting and well done, and I liked how they had their own unique thing, and how even though she had this really weird situation, hold on. Even though she had this really weird situation, there was a very human story underneath it. Where what if you were just a woman in the real world who lost their baby, and a lot of women who lose babies that they wanted to have, later term, and it's a baby that you wanted and you feel connected to it. It's valid if you're a person who didn't want all that, but from what I understand, that's like a really big loss. Like, you feel like a part of you is missing. And that's how she felt, and that's what literally happened to her.
Yeah.
A part of her was missing, and it was stuck in like a different place, and she couldn't let this baby go, and she couldn't leave that place because of the baby. So she was physically and emotionally stuck because of the trauma of losing her baby. And the only way to be free was to let her baby go and, like, recover from that emotionally and in some ways physically for her. And then merge as one into her sister.
Of course.
Yeah, as one does.
As one does.
And then merge herself into her sister's body so that they could be one.
Yeah. Who was your favorite character?
Oh, that's hard. You know what I really... now that I'm looking on the screen, Guillermo del Toro's character, Frankenstein, what was his name?
Oh, Dead Man.
Dead Man. He just randomly says, yeah, I'm made of dead people's bodies.
Yeah.
I was like, what? But I don't know who my favorite character was.
I
think I really liked Amelie and how she had this whole situation where she's like, yeah, I'm a god of death, but I'm not, like, really like that.
Yeah.
Like, she was destined to be this creature of, like, destruction, but she didn't want to be that. And she tried her best not to, and she still did. Like, who she was as a person was different than how she was born.
Yeah. I liked Heartman because I just felt like his story was, like, very goth. It was so, like, yeah, I'm just gonna, like, die every, like, 20 minutes. And,
oh my
like,
god, I had such a crush on him.
Yeah, me too.
Like, at first, when you first meet him, you're like, whatever, but then after, you're like, you're so smart.
I don't know, but, like, because his story was just so, like, it just felt very, like, Victorian goth to me, where it was like, oh, I'm going to, like, recline on my fainting couch for 3 minutes of flatlining, and then, like,
I loved that his house was fully equipped to be a bed at any moment.
Yes.
All of his
that was
floors,
so funny.
like that part where he falls down and the floor, like,
Puffs
up. And I was like, genius. At any moment, he could just sleep, and it's fine. Well, he's dead, but whatever.
So I really liked his shtick a lot. I was very protective of BB, which is another thing I wasn't expecting, because I was kind of like, oh, a baby, whatever. But no, I actually got really attached to it. And
That's because it's not like a real, like, when you're done with that baby, you just turn off the game, and then, like, you don't have to deal with it anymore.
True. It's like having, like, a Tamagotchi. You're like, now I can just turn it off. Or more.
Well, no, Tamagotchis you can't turn off. That's why everyone hates them.
You take the batteries out.
Then it's dead. You killed it forever.
Yeah. You get a new one.
No.
Wait. Did you ever have a Furby?
Yeah.
Okay, so I remember my dad got me and my brother Furbies, and then eventually had to, like, completely take them apart because they wouldn't shut up.
You took the batteries out?
I know, he, like, just he got mad.
Oh,
so he
dad?
literally just completely took them apart. Because, like, tried to, like, turn them off, they wouldn't turn off, they kept, like, waking up, took the batteries out, and, like, and then I think it was just a matter of, like, frustration, and, like, I'm just gonna, like, take this thing apart. So then we didn't have Furbies anymore.
Dude,
we had them for, like, a day.
I wonder if they made Furbies now, like, would they still be the same level of just whatever, or would they just be hyper intelligent beings?
Oh, that's creepy. Oh, what did you think of Higgs?
He was cool. I know that you were unbelievably attracted to him. He was alright.
Yeah, and
he got like Sanskrit tattoos on his forehead, so that's when I pieced out.
I thought that was just math.
I don't know. He had math eyebrows, so
yeah, I thought that was just like not that makes it. It's just.
It's not Sanskrit. It's math. Come on, Murray.
No. But it's at least not like the equivalent of getting like a Chinese character lower back tattoo. Mm-hmm. It's math, which is like very nerdy, but not.
I just want to say that if you're a white guy and a vegan and you get Sanskrit on your body, you're the one person that I hate. And I'm specifically speaking about this one guy who was like saying that Chinese food was disgusting, and because it had meat in it, and everyone was like, the dish that you're showing us is vegan, you idiot asshole. Like, he was saying that a certain Asian dish looked like trash water, and everyone was like, who the fuck are you? And then they look, and he's like, has Asian tattoos all over his body, and I was like, you need to leave, sir.
Yuck.
What was it? Well, Higgs, I liked him as a character. I feel like he wasn't fleshed out enough. I feel like all the other characters had these like really intense fleshed out things, and Higgs didn't get that in the main storyline. I know that you can go to his house after the game, which I haven't done, but I really think that Higgs was the only one who didn't. Everyone in the story was not a bad person, and Higgs was the only one who was just seen to be like 100% like, I'm here to be bad, even though there's one part where they say, oh, Higgs, he wasn't like that before he met Amelie or whatever.
Yeah, well, because I think that you don't really get clarity on his character until the very end, because then you find out that he was actually being controlled by Amelie. Mm-hmm. And I wonder sometimes if maybe that's why he wasn't more fleshed out, because if you make him, I don't know.
It cuts back on the coolness factor.
Yeah.
But I really liked in this story that no one was actually a bad person. It was a bunch of people just trying to live who did really terrible things to each other.
Well, also, like, so for instance, one of the ways to flesh out a villain or somebody in a villain role like that would be to expand on, like, his motivations. But you can't really do that because his motivations is just that Amelie wants the world to end, and she's using him as a catalyst to do it. So they're not technically Higgs's motivations anyway, and you can't reveal that it's Amelie's, you know what I mean? So, like, throughout the game, when you meet him, he just seems like, I just want to be, like, a chaotic bisexual, whatever. And, like, so maybe that's part of why, like, he doesn't get more than that.
No, I feel that it would.
I wish that they could have done more.
Because I really liked the overall theme of everyone was. Because you know how in movies they're like, I'm so evil because one time I was sad, and you're like, okay, that's your backstory, and you're just gonna get like super evil. Everybody in this game was not an evil person, didn't identify as an evil person, was consumed with guilt over the horrible things that they had all done and done to each other. So that none of them were bad people, but they had done bad things to each other that they regret deeply. And I liked that. I thought that was super cool.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite delivery? 'Cause, like, I think that my favorite one would have been our whole side story with the artist.
Oh my god, that was the most insane story. Because I like from the very beginning, this guy's energy was way too. I just did not like his energy. He was just like, here's weird recordings of this girl I like being weird, and I'm going to be really hostile to you, and then I go and do his stuff for him, and they get back together, and then and I was like, fine, like, maybe I'm wrong, maybe this guy is, like, fine, and then immediately he's, like, complaining, and she's like, this guy fucking sucks, and I was like, vindicated, and then they want to get back together, and then, like, Well, one thing I was so much respected about that storyline was that the chiral artist was like, I cannot take it anymore. I would rather go out into the world unprepared and make it back to my mom's house than spend one more moment with this boy, this man. And I was like, I respect that on a level. I don't know what the reason is. I just respect the dedication to just wanting
to just walk away.
To walk away. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it really feels that hard, but sometimes you just got to do it. And then they're like, okay, maybe we can get back together. And I was like, don't do it. And then the mom is like, I have a secret. Actually, his friends murdered her parents, but it's okay because he saved her. And I was like, yeah, but he didn't save her parents. And he was also rolling with a gang that was killing people, and he already knew that. This doesn't make it better. It's actually way worse.
I kind of love how, like, we got through the entire game, we get to the after thing, and all of a sudden that last email popped through, and we were all, everyone, including, like, the chat, was just like, what?
I hate that storyline, though, because that happens a lot in, I guess, a lot of teen movies, mm-hmm. teen fantasy movies, where, like, oh, I was actually, like, rolling with the bad guys, and so, like, can you forgive me? And it's like, okay, I can find the heart to forgive you, or whatever the fuck, and I'm just like, no, wait, so we're gonna forgive him because the one time that it was gonna happen to us, he saved us from his friends, but we're gonna ignore the fact that he was also doing this to a bunch of other people before he saw the main character who he just thought was hot, so he decided to save her. Like, fuck that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's valid, but I think also if you're writing about the perspective of somebody who's, like, getting out of, like, a violent situation, mm-hmm. they don't get forgiveness for all the things that they did. But everyone who gets out has that first step that they take towards getting out.
Yeah, I'm not against them getting out. I'm against them dating.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm against.
But I guess if you look at, either violent situations or, like, somebody who has an addiction or, like, whatever, like, there's always going to be that, like, transition point of, mm-hmm. like, hey, maybe the reason somebody got out of this, like, horrible situation is because of somebody else, and if that's what it takes, then fine.
That's fine, but I think that she definitely emotionally, for herself, should not be with the guy who contributed to the murder of her family.
Ironically, I care less about that and more about how he's just a fuckboy now.
Yeah, that's true.
Because here's the thing, is if he had, like, gotten out, was like, wow, I was horrible, and then was a nice person after that, I don't think we'd care as much.
No, yeah, you're right. You are right.
The reason that we care is because he's now a fuckboy.
Yeah, no, because the emails we got were like, marriage is so hard, blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, why does he suck so much? And I was like, I know exactly. He doesn't wash his butt, his underwear is dirty, and he's like, why aren't you cleaning?
I know, we were just sitting there being like, I've met this man.
I have known this man. I have dated this man. I know exactly what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that they should be together, but whatever.
If he was like, like, I do half of the chores without making it seem like I'm making a sacrifice. Or if they just, like, emailed being like, hey, we've had some rough bumps, but actually, we're trying to make it work. Mm-hmm. Then I would have been like, I was wrong, but I was right.
Yeah.
I think that was, like, the best side storyline.
Yeah. That I feel, and you know what I feel like was so fun about that, too, is that we really followed that through the whole game, which is always kind of a treat. I feel like when you have this, like, side story that you're just, like, getting, like, periodic updates on, because every time we'd get a new update about it, we'd be like, oh no,
like what?
Yeah.
Just break up. Like, it's over. There's other people. I know there's, like, 10 people, but there's at least 10 people that you can date. But I guess, like, I guess it's better than having to get some shipped sperm, because that's what they all were doing.
I know.
All the cities were shipping sperm to each other, and eggs.
To diversify the gene pool, I guess.
Can we talk about how Death Stranding was robbed at the Game Awards?
Yes, that's actually the last topic that I was going to get to. Hold on. I want to see what it did win.
It won 2 awards. Best soundtrack and some new award that they made up to give to him.
So it won 3 things.
Oh.
Performance for Mads Mikkelsen.
Oh, yeah.
Score soundtrack, which was really great. So, yes, I agree with that, definitely. And studio game direction. It was also nominated for a ton of other, like, for, 6 other things, I think? I think it was kind of a shame that it didn't win more of these things.
I think we think that because last year Red Dead Redemption literally won everything.
Yeah.
And we're like, can you not win everything for 1 second?
Yeah. It is interesting how it won for studio and game direction, but not game of the year. But
because they added a new one. Because there was all this thing where, like, Hideo Kojima's best friends with Jeff Keighley. I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
But one more thing that I want to talk about is Stacey also wanted to. Die Hardman's performance
at the
end of the game. Because the whole game,
yes,
he is wearing this mask, which is thematic. It's like, everyone wears masks. We're all wearing masks. Mask. Like, it's a whole thing that has to do with the story.
Mm-hmm.
He takes it off. And, like, the first scene you see him... is it the first scene? But it's one of the first scenes you see him where he's no longer wearing the mask.
Mm-hmm.
And he just explains,
what had happened.
What this horrible thing he did to Sam's father. And the reason why Sam doesn't have a father. And all these things. And he's like, I'm so sorry. And he's, like, crying. And that's not something you see a lot in media, is, like, a strong... Because the whole game, he's, like, this strong, stoic dude.
Well, because he's, like, a military guy.
He's, like, a military, strong, stoic dude.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, he's like, I'm so sorry. And he uses the word love. Mm-hmm. He uses a lot of really, like, deeply connecting words. He cries. Like, not just, like, stoic crying where he's just sitting there. Like, he's, like, scream crying.
Yeah, well, he like falls to the floor and is like essentially begging Sam for forgiveness.
Yeah, and I really felt that. Like, that was a really impactful scene where he explains, like, I'm so sorry I did this to you.
You know what else is really cool too is that, so I've seen a bunch of like posts from the actor on Twitter, and he like loves his like character. He just, and I feel like that really came through. And it's like where it feels better when you're like, oh, this person like really, really had a good time with what they were doing. Because he was like posting all sorts of like things like, oh, like here's me like acting out some of the scenes that I did in Death Stranding. Like here's me with like an Instagram filter that has the Die Hard Man mask, like fun stuff like that. And to see somebody just like not just be like, oh, I'm gonna like post like marketing updates of here's when the game comes out, but I'm actually gonna like engage with fans and be like super excited about this like honestly stellar performance that he gave. It was cool.
I really felt that. I really felt that. And he used it. I just really, really love that he said the word love. Like, I loved your father.
Yeah.
And people can interpret that, as bisexual or whatever. Because he was like, I loved her and I loved him. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I really like that he used the word love for... My interpretation is, like, probably his best friend. But, they could have fucked. I don't know. And I loved her, and I feel like that's really impactful to hear from somebody who seems to be a very, like, military man. Mm-hmm. And I like the idea that big, strong men can cry and also say that they love.
And just emote in general, like, express strong emotions.
Feel. Yeah. Because... he's wearing a mask, and he's probably, like, holding all of this back all the time. Mm-hmm. Like, constantly. He's wearing the mask so he doesn't have to show how he feels. Takes the mask off, scream crying.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
please
really great.
Forgive me, blah, blah, blah. And I like that. That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that this game was... I don't know. I really enjoyed it, and it was different than I tried to go into it with as little expectations as possible. I try to do that with most games. I try not to like set myself up for thinking too much, just because I'm like, I just want to see like what it puts in front of me and go from there, rather than like, you know, I don't know if some people like walked into this thinking that they were gonna get like a Metal Gear Solid like shooter or whatever.
Well, to be fair, Metal Gear Solid is also very emotional.
Mm-hmm. But
why are we here? Just to suffer?
Yeah, but I really liked this game. I think that, and you know, I also think that it's worth it if you're the type of person who is not interested in the gameplay to maybe watch like the story elements and to still like see like everything that happens, you know? I think that you could still enjoy the game that way. If you're the type of person who's like, yeah, I don't have 40 or 50 hours to just wander around and do fetch quests.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, that was the spoiler cast.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us for the spoiler cast. We hope you enjoyed all of the videos on Death Stranding and this, and we will talk to you later.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Love you.